Hi, thanks for being in a new video. Xiaomi and Realme have surprised at Mobile World Congress showing concepts of devices capable of using lenses like these to place them on a cell phone instead of placing them on a camera, and thus have a completely supreme image quality. Let's talk a bit about this. Let's start. For some time now, Xiaomi had already shown progress or some kind of interest regarding an idea of having interchangeable lenses on a cell phone with the Xiaomi 12S Ultra. However, this device, we never had the opportunity to hold it in our hands or to take a closer look at it, as we have now had the opportunity with these new devices. Let's start describing you a little bit the proposal that Xiaomi has that has shown it in Barcelona. In this case, it is a special edition of the Xiaomi 15 that in itself has a good camera system, but in this case, it would have a kind of magnetic accessory similar to the Xiaomi 15. This is similar to what we see with the MagSafe accessories for the iPhone, which you simply bring the lens closer and without the need to screw or anything like that. You just stick it and it has some small pins that will make contact with the cell phone and even apparently also have some laser communication, and in this way from the cell phone you can also continue to manipulate things like autofocus and transfer all the information from the sensor to the cell phone, since in this case the camera sensor would be directly mounted on the lens. So that is a different concept, because in cameras the sensor is in the camera body, and that also makes it more attractive because with the same sensor of very good quality you can go using several lenses. In this case, Xiaomi's proposal seems a bit strange because the sensor is in the lens, and therefore in a hypothetical case that this device would go on sale, you would have to buy several lenses that have the same sensors, and that could make it very expensive. Lenses that may be sold separately. However, the advantage is that the device would look like a normal cell phone, and simply, if you want a more professional camera, you stick this lens as an additional accessory, and that's it. You still have the same functionality of a cell phone with all the controls and with good response speed. And something that undoubtedly must be highlighted as positive points of this implementation of Xiaomi is the communication that manages to have the cell phone with the lens. For example, in this case, you simply open the camera interface and there is an additional button to use the magnetic lens that can later also give you two perspectives in terms of portrait photography. But the most interesting thing comes when you use the professional mode, because you see how you can manipulate the focus. For example, from the graphical interface or also from the ring that usually comes with the lens. So by turning that ring, you will also notice a response in the software. And it must be remembered that in this case, it is communicating simply through a few small pins. So it really is remarkable the level of interaction that is achieved. In fact, Xiaomi has indicated that this technology is already patented in case they want to make the implementation in the future, so if other brands want to follow in their footsteps, they will also have to pay the corresponding royalties. But now let's talk a little about Realme's proposal in this case. This Realme proposal is much more like what we saw a few years ago with the Xiaomi 12S Ultra, that is. The cell phone keeps the sensor as we see in the cameras, and in this case you can change the lenses on the outside, although Realme has used DSLR as a term of how to compare with cameras of this style, however. In reality, they refer to a mirrorless camera since it does not have any type of mirror on the cell phone, because that would mean adding a lot more thickness. So, we are talking about an implementation similar to what we see in mirrorless cameras, but having the sensor directly on the cell phone. If you don't have any lens on it, it would be like having the camera this way. It is not recommended to leave the camera this way for a long time because the sensor can get damaged, dust can get into it. Even if you leave it exposed to the sun for a long time, it could get more damaged. Yet. So, in the case of Realme, they put this sensor, and on top of that, they have a glass that protects it. But obviously, by having a glass, the light is not going to pass with such purity to the sensor unless the glass is off. An ultra outstanding quality, but if this glass gets scratched, obviously your camera is going to be damaged in a sense. So this would be a small drawback with respect to what Xiaomi proposes, but the interchangeable lens accessories would not be so expensive, because the sensor would be in the body of the cell phone and not directly on the lens. As you can see, each implementation has its pros and cons, but in the case of Realme we see that, for example, the focus would be completely manual through the lens rings because it is not able to communicate with the cell phone to change certain parameters from the cell phone interface. or communicate for a kind of autofocus. So that is a big limitation that Realme has. So let me know at it. We would like to know which proposal seems better in terms of implementation, but the truth of the matter is that the results of the photographs are very completed with either of the two proposals, since we are talking about much larger lenses that allow better light gathering. In addition, they would also allow you to have variable aperture, something that we do see in cell phones. But due to the size of the lenses does not cause as much difference as if it would cause to see variable aperture in sensors of this style. For example, look here. I think it's even very noticeable when I close the aperture or when I set this aperture all the way open, which is from f1.2 to f16. This in cell phones, as I say, is possible in certain models, but normally varies from f5 to f4, and as I say, being so tiny lenses really do not make such a big difference as if we could see it in lenses of these dimensions. It will be interesting to see if camera manufacturers that are perfectly well positioned like Canon, Nikon or Sony pay attention to some of this that smartphone manufacturers are doing. Especially to get a little closer perhaps to users who are not so professional. Because generally the user interfaces and configuration of these types of cameras come a little more sophisticated sometimes by the number of options they have. But the idea of being able to have interchangeable lenses in a cell phone could be one of the most interesting proposals, and also in some way would help to simplify a little the design of the cell phone that increasingly incorporates more cameras on the back. I don't know if you can imagine a future in which it is a cell phone with only one camera, and if you want more sophisticated cameras, you can attach your lenses on the back. To me, it would seem an interesting proposal, especially now that several manufacturers are handling this idea of an ultra-thin device. So it could also be a way to offer a very good photographic system without the need for the cell phone to be very large or very thick. But please let me know your opinion in the comments. In the case of Realme, they made a comparison of how the result comes out with their cell phone and how it comes out with the iPhone applying 10x zoom, and evidently we are talking about full optical zoom with a very big lens versus digital zoom with a very tiny lens, and the result of Realme looks spectacular. Completely superior to what the iPhone might be able to show you in that kind of circumstance. Because basically we are combining the best of professional photography with respect to optics and interchangeable lenses with the experience of having it all in a cell phone. I want to read your opinion in the comments, and just as an additional detail of other things we saw at Mobile World Congress, Techno, which is another cell phone manufacturer, showed a technology of a periscope lens capable of moving. This movement is intelligent. So in the preview of the cell phone, you're looking at the main camera, and instead of zooming in and taking a picture, in this case you just double tap on any face or item that you want to capture, and the device is going to move the telephoto camera to focus on that area, and it's going to take the picture, and obviously it's going to give you a closer perspective. It seems to me just a demonstration of some of the technologies that they are working on, but this one obviously I think is not going to be implemented in any cell phone. But I wanted to tell you about it because they were showing it over there. So let me also know your opinion regarding these technologies. I like the fact that there are manufacturers that are still exploring new formats or new possibilities to innovate in cell phones. Which proposal did you like the most? Xiaomi, Realme or Techno? For now we have reached the end of this video. If you liked it, you know you can let us know, and we'll see you next time.